Come give us your natural gift. We make wealth from toil. Come pretend for history's page. We're advancing Australia fair. Let's pretend that we're all advancing Australia fair.
So here we are in Bellingen, and we've got Colin, right?
Good morning, good afternoon, Michael. How are you?
Yeah, good. Now, I met you in Nimbin. We came over to say hello, but the story is why I'm here. So I'll get you to sit forward a bit because my arm's only short. But let's talk about, you were a third generation farmer.
On that farm?
Tell
Fifth generation in that district, but yeah, third generation on that farm.
So, tell us back to the fifth generation. Who was the first to get to that town, and what town was it, and who was the first of your ancestors to get there?
It's in the Dandaloo district, which is southwest of Narromine. Narromine was our hometown.
Yeah.
And that was the original. They were some of the first settlers there. The Richardsons, who was on my grandmother's side, and my grandfather, he emigrated to Australia when he was 17, I believe, and he came and worked on the Richardsons' property and married the eldest daughter, and so
That was a clever trick.
pretty much moved to the farm next door, and that's where we stayed.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you started there. So 3 generations owning the farm.
Yes.
How does that work? So you're born on the farm, and were you the oldest, or were you the only one that wanted to work on it?
No, we were fortunate that we worked, my 2 older brothers and I, and my father and his brother worked together in a partnership, and we amassed a number of neighbouring properties, and so there came a point in history where it's time to go our separate ways, and I ended up on the family farm, and my brothers ended up on separate properties of their own.
What is it like, because I'm a traveller all my life, what is it like, and how connected are you to the land when you're born on it, basically, and you're there all your life, and you know your father and grandfather were there? How deeply connected are you to that land?
It's very connected, and I totally sympathise or empathise with the Aboriginal community, and they've been there for thousands of years, and we've only been there for 2 or 3 generations, and you were very deeply connected, and every square inch of that property intricately. So,
and you didn't get bored with it? It's still you still got astounded by little things happening?
You notice the change over time, like I'm at retirement age, if you want to call it that, but you notice the change over time, and the change in the seasons, and the weather patterns, and the impacts that all that has on the life of the land and our production capacity, if you like. So,
and before what happened, in your mind or heart, were you determined this is where I'm born here, I'm going to be buried around here?
Absolutely. I had no plans to leave that property or the district, and I thought, we'll see out our days here and get probably buried in the local cemetery and with all the rest of the clan. So it was totally not planned to leave there at all, but the last probably 6 or 7 years.
Before we get there, I just want to paint some back picture.
Yeah.
Tell me the life of a farmer when you wake up. What's going through your mind as a farmer? Because you're not someone going to work, clocking on, getting your pay, going home, watching TV. You're the active part of this business or this farm. What's a day in your life like?
Usually, sun up till sundown most days, but you work with the seasons and those jobs, if you like, that are specific to that season. Like sowing the winter crops is usually done in May into June, and so you've got to think ahead and have everything ready before that period, and then at the same time leading up to harvest, which is traditionally in sort of that November, sometimes in a December period, and you've got to make sure things are lined up in those month or 2 before that everything's ready, thinking about the commodity prices and how you're going to market your crops if you're doing crops, and similarly with sheep and cattle, which we used to do. Working with the markets and was a good time to sell and is it not? And then you've got all the vagaries of the season. If it's, the prices might be good, but you've got no grass to feed them on and all that sorts of things. So there's a lot of dynamics you've got to play with all the time.
So it's constantly keeping you on your toes.
It's a non-stop 24/7.
But did you get fatigued of that, or did you actually enjoy it, going, this is my life?
There's a certain level of enjoyment and keeping you on your toes all the time, but yeah, you do get fatigued if you don't look out, and that's, I think, it's probably some of the issue with you hear of the number of suicides on farms these days. There's that level of fatigue that it comes in, and then you get a bad couple of seasons in a row, and if you got the bank sort of not far away, it plays on your mind all the time, and I can totally understand why people go to that. They feel there's no way out, or they feel like they're a failure if they don't take another option. So
What were you farming at the end?
So in 2010 we changed our whole program completely. We went out of cropping because we'd realised that what we were doing was not sustainable, and what we were doing to the land we were in fact doing to ourselves, because as food producers, which is what farmers are, we didn't want to be consumers of that type of product. So we thought, well, why on earth are we growing it if we won't eat it ourselves? So,
wow, beautiful.
So we totally went away from high input chemical industrial cropping, went back to a grazing based enterprise and trying to regenerate our soils and our environment. And so it's probably a couple of years after that we introduced chickens to our enterprise to add another layer to it, to get their manure and their input onto the landscape to try and regenerate.
Did you have those sort of massive chicken farms that move?
Yes.
And so they're fertilising the ground as they go?
That's right, they're fertilising the ground. We move them every probably 3 days, move their little house, their caravans, the chicken caravans, move them to a fresh patch. And you can really notice the difference when you go into the cropping phase after that. There's the intensity of their manure, and the crop is just so much more vigorous, and even if you're not cropping it in the grass and you bring the cattle in the next season and it's lush, and they just head to those spots straight away because they know what's good.
That must have been exciting as a farmer to go, hey man, we're doing this with natural stuff.
It was very rewarding and exciting to see the impact you could have, the positive impact and the regeneration, and it was good.
And also bringing to market stuff that people want to eat, because we don't want to eat all this stuff full of chemicals.
Absolutely, and so we had quite a strong following, if you like, locally. We used to deliver our eggs personally to within 100 k's of the farm, and also at the farmers markets, and we were well respected and highly sought after. So.
And was that enough to sustain the property? What you were doing?
No, we still ran the pastured beef enterprise as well, but we never got to the point of direct marketing that. It's still sold through conventional markets, but
you're on your way to making it a sustainable farm in a way.
Yes, yeah. And there was a tough few years there because it was during some drought type years, and it was hard to get the pasture growth and the regeneration happening in those sort of seasons. But
can I ask, as a farmer, how do you deal with the frustration of drought? I mean, it must be the winter. You must get every morning and thinking, where is a drop of rain?
Yes, it does wear you down. I know at the end of, I think it was 2019, just when that drought broke, and it was relentless, and I was absolutely buggered, I tell you. I'm glad to see the end of that. But
did you get flooded out then? Did the rain?
We did have floods.
So you go from drought and dead to floods?
Yeah, well, floods in our district, the land there was quite flat in a way. It's on the flood plain, but it's quite flat, and we're 50 kilometres from the Macquarie River, and another probably 15 or 20 k's from the Bellingen River on that flood plain. But it does get wet, and we get water that's probably up to half a metre deep. It just takes over the whole place.
So how do you do that? You're praying for rain, you're desperate for rain to save the farm, and then you get a flood. How do you go home at night? I mean, do you just want to pull your hair out, or you just laugh it off? How do you deal with that?
Well, you got to take it as a blessing in some ways, and relieve that you don't have that monotony of the drought. But then it's a whole nother package of things you got to put into place, and thought processes, and different equipment sometimes to manage that getting through the mud. And
Just like, does it take fences away and you've got to kill stock? I mean, what is the damage that a good flood will do to your property?
Where we are, it doesn't flow that quickly, and our fences and things still remain pretty well intact, so we didn't have that issue. But on my brother's place, which is on one of the rivers, the fences do get badly impacted, and you've got to get out and put them all back up again after the flood goes down.
So here you are, you're getting through all of that, and now we get to the crux of the story of why we're here. So what happened? How come you're here talking to me now? Take us through it bit by bit.
Well, in I think it was 2017 or 18, I was actually, I suppose, it was explained to me, or shown to me, the impact on old woodland trees, and I'd never specifically noticed it just because it creeps in so slowly. And it was explained to me that that's spray drift, impact from chemical drift from the cropping industry. And the way it was explained to me, and if you hold a piece of paper up and put the leaves in front of it, you can see the spots from the spray drift and the impact that it's had on the vegetation. And then when you become aware of it, and you can just drive around any of the cropping districts in pretty much Australia, I think, and it's the fresh growth on those old trees that's been taken out and they're not there's no fresh growth coming, so you got the dieback on the.
Is that why Kelly and I drive around and suddenly we come across on one side of the road there'll be all trees and the other side they're all dead?
Quite possibly, most probably, yeah. It seems to be more. The impact seems to be more severe in cotton growing areas, where they grow cotton in the summer and then they grow a winter crop in the winter time, but like your winter cereals, I think, because they get a double hit. Whereas if it's only one of either, the plants seem to have a window of 2 or 3 months there where they'll start to try and regrow again, but then the next season comes and they get hit again. But it's very, even in that short period, that 5 to 6 year period where we were in the constant battle with the EPA and the local authorities and the farmers groups, that even then you could see that the noticeable difference. Every year it got hit again, and it's just it's a slow desertification.
Yeah. So the point is though, so you were trying to be basically organic, not certified organic, but just organic on your property, and you couldn't be because neighbouring properties are just going chemically nuts.
That's right. So part of we weren't, like you said, we weren't certified organic, but all our management practices were organic, and we promoted our eggs and our produce as chemical free because we had no chemicals on the farm, and yet we've got a neighbour that deliberately, and I say deliberately because it was that obvious, only sprayed when the wind was blowing towards our place. Wow. He knew he was getting under my skin, and I couldn't do a damn thing about it. But we put up little monitoring discs out there that are receptive for chemical drift. We got evidence of that, as well as what the vegetation's showing us, and there's only so much of that I can bear. I can't deliberately lie to people and say that I'm selling you chemical-free produce, knowing damn well that my chooks and my cattle are out grazing in pastures that are obviously impacted by chemical spray drift. And that it ate me up.
So you told me though that you tried to get support from the town, but the town, it's your town, you're born there, you've grown up there, and the town weren't that supportive of you? No,
it was a case of like, poke your head up, you're going to it's like whack-a-mole, wherever you go you're going to get knocked down, and it was very, it was a real kick in the guts. Yeah. To think that these are the people that I've grown up with. And they become aware of it, but they either don't want to acknowledge it for fear that they'll get attacked, or they're in denial that they're the problem, or the cause of the problem. And I really think that to get change that's required, it's not going to happen until they accept and acknowledge that what they're doing is causing it. We've batted pretty hard with trying to work with the EPA as far as monitoring,
And that's the Environmental Protection Authority.
that's right.
You didn't give it to us?
That was a real eye-opener to us. It's a whole nother can of worms in that they came and set up a monitoring program. They had these half a dozen monitoring sites around the district with the special equipment to pick up the spray chemicals drifting in the atmosphere, and they thought it was just a waste of time. The first year, that a lot of results was conclusive. About a month, no, less than a month from the time that those things were being sprayed, they were showing up in their monitoring equipment, and probably it's a few weeks later you get the delay in what's being shown in the landscape, in the vegetation, is when they start shedding their leaves and that. And it was just so conclusive, and I think it really threw them. But they said, oh, we'll need to keep on monitoring this to see what's going on, to verify it. And I said, well, haven't you got enough evidence? I don't want to sit here and monitor our own demise. Yeah. So we got onto a state parliamentarian who put in a standing order for request of communications and things between the EPA, government, all the other government bodies, the local government, state government, and that just really blew me away as to the depth of capture, if you like, of the various cropping industries. You got the crop cotton industry and grains industry they have representatives on those boards on the APVMA. That's the Australian Pest and Veterinary Chemicals Association.
Lobbyists, really.
And they're the ones that set the guidelines for the use of these chemicals. But there's a whole industry, if you like, of lobbyists. I think there's 28 full-time lobbyists in Canberra for the chemical industry. And I think, well...
and how many farmers?
Well, there's plenty of farmers, but there's not many that are...
No, I mean, in Canberra, lobbying with them.
Yeah. Those industries, they have a seat at that table all the time. So it's obviously which way they're going to lean.
Yeah.
And until they accept what we're showing them and acknowledge that, they're not going to change, because that is mega dollars for those chemical industries, exactly the same as the pharmaceutical industry. They're not going to change if it's going to hit their hip pocket, and that's what's been happening. They've just been dancing around the issue, and we'll tighten up the monitoring of the spray compliance, because every spray operator has got to have got to do a chemical accreditation course, and he's got to have a license to be able to use those chemicals, which is fair enough. But so they're just going around, tinkering around the edges with all that, but they've done absolutely nothing to change the application of some of these chemicals. So in our first year, no, it was our second year of trying to confront the EPA, and the industry said, this is the cotton industry, said they wouldn't believe it. They said, well, you prove that it's us. So we got some samples of the local peppercorn trees, which are a real canary in the coal mine. They're a very early indicator of spray drift, and coincidentally they don't shed their leaves naturally, but this was every year they'd shed their leaves, and if you go and look at it, they got the telltale spots on them. So we got some of those leaves, sent them off to a certified lab, came back positive for diuron. Now diuron, if you read the label, says it's never to be applied by aircraft, and yet down in the fine print it's a later addition, unless you're in the cotton industry. They're allowed to spray that chemical. They've now introduced that into their defoliation mix when cotton comes up ready to harvest, they hit it with a number of different chemicals virtually to kill the plant, to shed the leaves so that the leaves of cotton there ready to be picked. So that was evidence that was there, but the thing is, with that chemical, it's got a half-life of over 300 days. So it's accumulating in the environment from year, if they use that every year, it's building up in the environment. So that was a dead easy one because no one else is using Diaron. Yeah.
And that evidence amounted to nothing with them?
No, they wouldn't accept it because it wasn't collected by their staff, and there's possibilities for contamination and all sorts of stuff.
So eventually, after 6 years you came to a point where you decided enough's enough.
Exactly. I didn't want to live out my twilight years in that environment. It's so depressing seeing the landscape around you just dying in front of your eyes, and no likelihood of a significant change in our lifetime, in what I've got left. So we decided it's time, and we picked a point on the map that had at least likelihood of chemicals being used, and that's why we ended up here in this beautiful spot.
I would suspect that when most farmers, especially second or third generation farmers, realise they have to give up the farm, this is where we lose a lot of farmers, or when they're coming up to that. When you made the decision, how did you not go that route? How did you get through and talking to me now? Because I know it hurt you. I've seen it in you. That's why I'm here. How did you manage to get through that? Because that must have been, I can't understand how tough that must have been.
Yeah, it felt like a real betrayal of my parents and grandparents before me, and some of my siblings I still haven't spoken to. It was a bloody tough decision, but we have to, decide what's best for our future, and like I say, we weren't going to prepare to stay in that environment. We felt like we were outcasts in our own town. Like,
why were you outcast? How come? I can't understand why people wouldn't rally around you. You've been there much longer than Big Pharma or Big Food, whatever it is.
They, for whatever reason, felt we were some kind of a Fruit Loop or a nut job because we cared about the environment and we could see what was happening, and we tried to do something about it. And obviously, like I say, they either didn't want to know or refused to accept that they were part of the problem. And I really can't see that changing unless it's going to hit their hip pocket or they get a major health scare from it, from being exposed to that all the time.
The final time you left the farm must have been a hell of a moment. You don't have to tell me about it, but I just want to empathise with you. That must have been a hell of a moment.
It was nearly probably 10 months from the time we'd made the decision, by the time we'd actually got a sale, and that was a whole other process, and Tommy packed up and moved. So it was actually a relief that last time to leave, because we'd already made that hard decision. We'd made that decision. It was just...
So you'd grieved up to the...
Yeah. Well, it took probably another 12 months at least after we moved till I'd... and even reliving this now is dragging it all back up again, but it was that 12 months really for the top to be off there and feeling like we belong here and away from that environment, that I felt comfortable that, yeah.
So you've got a smaller farm now. What are you farming now, and how are you going back? Is it just, or are you just letting the land be?
It's only a very small block, and just cultivating my love for life and enjoying the moment while we're here and spending time with my wife, and looking forward to having a break and enjoying my twilight years here. It's beautiful.
What would you say though to, I mean, you've got the big corporations watching, or they might watch, and the politicians, but I think the most important thing is the people want chemically free. So you're actually trying to give the people what they want, and they're trying to spray us out of existence. What message would you have to those watching who've seen you have to leave the farm? Because to me, this is our kids and our kids' future.
Well, that's the problem. I think that they're not looking far enough to the future, and it's all dollar driven, and that seems to be all they're worried about. I mean, as far as the politicians, you might as well go and talk to a fence post. I don't see that we have a democracy anymore, and as to what it's supposed to be, it's all just manipulated by the almighty dollar and who's got the biggest influence. I really think our system of government's being directed and driven from somewhere externally, and it's not from our local politicians.
But as a farmer yourself, especially third generation, basically come from a beautiful environment where your grandfather would have planted a tree and he never sat under the shade, but you did. And this is how you kind of live. I'm not saying that's a metaphor, but You'd have to think that far ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's plenty of trees that my wife and I planted in the last 10 or 15 years we were there, and it's sad to see that go, and probably half of them have been removed or trashed by now. I don't know, but I dare say they probably have. You talked about my grandfather, like when they first came there, part of the soldier settlement blocks and those things, they had conditions that they had to clear the land because it was a government policy at the time.
Yeah.
But you know, I really think that it's probably gone a little bit too far that way, that it's not sustainable, and it's, in my recollection of the weather patterns and things, I think that's impacted what they call the small water cycle in the weather. I noticed that there used to be a line further out west, sort of in my recollection, around between Cobar and Nimbin, that was sort of the cut-off area for possibly that might have been suitable for cropping because of the reliability of the rainfall patterns. But I'd say that's crept in now. It's probably close to 200 k's east in my lifetime that's changed the weather in my observation. So, yeah, and that's interesting.
Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap it up?
No, I just...
Like any lesson you've learned from this? Are you still sitting the exam?
Still sitting the exam. But, no, just keep doing the best you can for yourself and for your family. And
I got some advice for you. You got to forgive yourself, brother. This is out of your hands.
Yes, that was one of the biggest challenges I faced, and it took me, like I say, at least 6 months, and it was pretty hard work going through that, and forgiveness was the biggest thing I had to do.
Thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
When I met Jesus Christ, he was almost 10 years old, and he was helping his mother push a trolley full of all they owned. And because they couldn't find an inn they could get in, they were heading to the city and leaving Bethlehem. Couldn't you perform a miracle? I'm out of them, he said. I tried turning nothing into warmth, but it just made my mother cry. It just made my mother cry. Mary Magdalene has become a man, and tonight he's old, and she has been riding my tram. Now it's late and she's trying to sleep beneath a poster for a bank. Your dreams are important to us as it bathes her face in gold. Come give us your natural gifts. We make wealth from toil. Come pretend for history's page that we're advancing Australia fair. Let's pretend that we're all advancing Australia fair. Back down the road I found the church we built on the black man's bones was empty, and out the front a sign read all but sold. A sign read all but sold. And we all owe so much money, but to whom we're not quite sure. So head